On LinkedIn. It's been a while since you've seen us. We took a little bit of a break for the a month of August. Let's welcome back Fuad Mia and Parth, very
Mhm.
prominent members of the UC Lab team. How have you guys been?
It's been a good summer,
Yeah.
and it happened pretty fast. Always
I mean,
so.
that's a good summary. I mean, it's been a good summer and it happened very fast. It's all in the past now. So it's a little bit of what was Neil saying earlier? It's bittersweet.
It's bittersweet.
Fuad, I think we lost your camera.
Oh, oops! I will change that.
It's like we're brand new at this all over again.
There, I'm back.
Perfect. What are we talking about today? We are talking about Google's core update. So this is their recent algorithm update to the Google search algorithm. And I think this happened sometime in May, but we're only just kind of understanding, or rather, the industry, not just we, are understanding and seeing the fallout of it. So, what's the high level of what Google has changed? I mean, we're used to previous changes. I think this one's a little uninspired in the naming. I think I preferred Penguin. Core is a little maybe it's on the nose. Who knows? Let's hear it, Fuad. What have they done?
Well, you know, I hear that this has been, or this is one of the biggest, one of the major updates since Panda and Penguin. And it actually relates to that. It goes back what we hear to user experience and content. And the fundamental metrics to user experience and content, if we look at that, can be related to a few things that we can quickly improve. But uh, we're going to look, some of the secrets that we have um, come to understand that can quickly impact your site's ranking. Uh, but to spice it up, Google, unlike other times, uh, we haven't heard much from Google this time in terms of what those granular metrics are, other than just keep doing what you're doing in terms of good content
Figure
and
it out, guys.
right um, and be user centric. Definitely, those are great recommendations. But for us, we have seen many of us in the industry that, despite following those, we had seen tremendous fluctuations. And to beat that, we have done a couple of experiments to see how we can understand quickly what's going on. And one thing, Justin, the credit goes to him. He quickly wanted to experiment and see if we can optimize site speed significantly. And we were able to by following some of the best practices. And it's probably very familiar to you, all the marketers. Server side tag manager helped us tremendously to take the burden off of a lot of the pixels that we use for marketing purposes.
Yeah, and I think anyone familiar with Google Tag Manager knows that a lot of it is very front end heavy. A lot is loaded on the user's actual machine, which can add additional time in loading the web page, but also additional strain on the actual machine. Um, so tech like server side tagging is really interesting because you don't have to actually load as many tags in the front end to actually accomplish the same amount of work, um, which is huge gains in a number of ways. I mean, one, you're not loading as much, and two, you're not exposing as much as well.
And I mean, there's so many more other benefits to server-side tag manager, and we're going to cover them in another episode. In this particular one, we have found that revisiting your decision in terms of deciding what platform may actually give you more leverage in terms of coming with best practices out of the box so that you don't have to invest so much into that. Traditionally, we know that in search engine practices, we would be investing a lot of time in technical SEO. And I think a lot of that burden. Not all, of course. Still, you have to be very, uh, careful about duplications, about many other granular parts of SEO and technical SEO. But a big part of that, if you uh, go with platforms where engineers have taken care of that, and I believe Webflow could be an example of that, Justin. Uh,
Webflow is an example of that. We just redid Blue Cap's website and that, and it is ridiculously fast to develop in, but also ridiculously fast to load, which is two things that I definitely found interesting about it, to be honest.
Justin, if we don't mind, let's show us our site speed. Um, and I think again, if your site loads under 2 seconds, I think it may not be the first priority for you to distribute all your effort to speed. But if you have a site, a page that's really important for the journey of your customers that loads above 2 seconds, then it's definitely time to consider how you can improve that, because Google, more than ever now, we have found that speed is a significant metric of signal. We heard in the last year that they no longer take your accelerated mobile pages as a signal of user experience. They're actually putting all that in the bucket of overall page speed. And having said that, now delivering that rich experience while without compromising the speed become becomes more important than ever before. So let's take a look at our Blue Cap site, Justin. If you show us.
Yeah, so we're loading at about 648 milliseconds here, which is pretty darn good. We used to have comparable loading speed with our pure HTML site, but one of the struggles that you kind of have is how fast do I want my site to load versus how fast do I want it to be updated, which is a constant struggle. A lot of people lean on WordPress for that. But we all know the downsides to WordPress. Can WordPress be fast? Yes. Is it out of the box? No. So it's nice to see technologies like Webflow bringing low code websites to bear with this kind of results. So I mean, between our implementation of Google Tag Manager server side as well as the Webflow technology, we're getting incredible load speeds off of this.
Now, of course, if you have an enterprise website, changing platforms overnight may not be a possible thing. And you may actually want to have as much flexibility as you need with your current platform that you have. On top of that, you want to scale. And that's where your site reliability engineers with scalability expertise and so forth would come in to have multi-approach strategy how you can optimize your page. Parth has done a lot of creative strategies and approaches for our application side in terms of how we can orchestrate the load, the speed, and there's so much more opportunities that engineers can look at and have a strategy, not a singular strategy, of course, multiple strategies to optimizing your site experience. And yes, our recommendation is it is a good time to invest into uh, optimizing your page load speed.
Absolutely, and I mean it's a combination of things because Google's really looking for that lazy loaded images right now, for example, to reduce that actual initial page load. Videos lazy loading. I mean that's not the standard right now, but that is required because you need to reduce that overall initial page size. Um,
Thank you for reminding us of that, Justin. Maybe we want to show exactly what we mean. I think Shopify does that very well. These kind of micro actions that are micro micro interactions. If you implement them, they would signal Google how you're taking care, how you're giving your users the power to manage. And that will signal very fast as well. We have noticed very speedy uh, impact of those kind of implementations.
Yeah, it's important to load only what your user needs as they need it. So, I mean, for images, it doesn't make sense to load the entire page until they actually need to see the images. So, as you scroll, an image or a video or things like that should be not loaded, right? Um, and again, like this is things that a lot of websites don't do out of the box. Um, which is again, and not to make it a Webflow sales pitch here, but I was really impressed that a lot of that is handled by the platform itself. Um,
Shopify, I think Shopify has that as a feature. I may be wrong, but they practice that across their website everywhere.
yeah, I mean the typical themes you can get for it. Yeah, they practice that, and their CDN is very well suited for that.
Now, we recently changed our content drastically um, to see how fast that would impact positively or negatively. Um, we created the content combined with visuals only with focus of users in mind, completely forgetting Google in the picture. What we have seen is um, a negative impact right away. There wasn't enough content, but according to the surveys, our users love our web page because they come to the website with an intent almost that not intent, but with some knowledge of the product, and they need to know how it works immediately as the next intent. But Google's seeing that as the first content as at the very high level. uh, their understanding of our topics and so forth negatively impacted, and we lost about. Sorry, Justin. Uh,
Yeah, no, it was interesting because it's definitely an exercise in a better user experience. I think because the videos are actually pretty. They explain a lot. Uh, But Google missing the context of that. I mean, we didn't have enough supporting text to go with them to say, this is what the users are seeing. So, how does the AI interpret that? Nothing's there. So it was interesting to see how quickly that actually affected the page rank and how drastically.
Now we have to disclose that the videos were without sounds. They didn't have any audio. So we can't confirm whether Google is smart enough still to actually index your video content and contribute that towards your topical signal. We would be checking that in our next uh, uh, experiment, that by adding video with rich content, audio content, whether Google, according to their new, as they claim that a lot of machine learning has been implemented, and AI has been implemented into new SEO, and we're thinking that may have an impact, but we'll be able to confirm as we go through the experiment in our next phase.
Very cool. So, I mean, I guess if there's two takeaways from this, users need to be cognizant of the content on their page, make it very user friendly, but also very discoverable by Google. That's sort of new, but not more reaffirming what we already knew. And then page speed is more important than ever. It's that mobile first world. We don't want to be weighing down people with heavy websites on mobile. So speed is the number one factor. Um, and we can achieve speed through things like server side tagging, not weighing down the users with tags, and using platforms that are built for um, efficient loading of web pages, be it through CDNs, be it through load balancing, be it through things like lazy load and that.
Yeah.
Anything left to say on the topic, Fuad?
No, two very obvious suggestions that you gave have very high impact. One thing to note down, as we found, that you can't solely think about one thing and completely forget the other, which is the content, as you mentioned. You have to find a balance, even though the suggestion is user first, but you have to think a little bit broader um, to fully leverage the algorithms that Google has put forth.
Absolutely. It's hard to strike that balance because it's easy to mix up the objectives there because you want your user to have the best experience possible, but you also need to be highly discoverable, or else other users won't be able to find it. So it's definitely something to keep in mind as you develop your pages.
We'll say.
Well, now we just have to practice it because we do have a content strategy to fix Blue Cap now that we've dropped 11 pages, but it's coming along. So what are we talking about tomorrow, Fawad? I think we have a segue into more data-driven analytics stuff.
How to foster a culture um, that uh, that takes decisions based on data across the organization.
Very cool.
And we're going to show one or two examples of our engagement with one customer where we have helped fostering that same very concept, and now where they are, how they take decisions. We're also going to show, not necessarily show, but discuss how analytics needs to be embedded and where it needs to be embedded, how it could be democratized, some of the techniques and frameworks, and how it can be achieved from there.
I like how it all segues into this because only because of the fact that we're data-driven do we actually see the effects of things like our SEO dropping or our page rank dropping immediately, and why and how to take steps to fix that. Whereas a lot of people kind of, well, I don't know if it's a lot of people, but as I
Yeah.
understood, it's something like only 30% of businesses are taking data-driven decisions, which is wild to me. I don't know how you make a decision other than with the data, but is it a guess at that point, Fuad?
Well, I think it's a challenge of convenience, um, meaning data is there, but it's not easy to see the insights. And I think the next era, not necessarily era, but next wave, we will see uh, how data can be actually, brought together and made sense ultimately as we get broader picture when we overlay different dimensions on top of each other. But right now, as you say, Justin, the difficulties come from marketing data, for example, ads data versus conversion data are not even connected in most organizations, right? Um,
CRM data is just out on its own.
mhm. Your inventory data and e-commerce is not talking to each other in real time.
We've seen it. We've seen it time and time again.
Um, yeah, so uh, there's so many gaps in terms of capabilities, but I think the solutions are there, and if we talk enough, if we educate enough, we can fill this gap, this huge gap of organizations who are not taking data driven decisions, because they could
Absolutely.
actually um, reduce a lot of unnecessary cost and overcome uh, all of the, not if not all, but many of the operational burdens and so forth, and thrive through these difficult times. Um,
Yeah, and I think data will be the key to thriving through a lot of it. It's like having a look into the future just based on you know proper analysis of the past. Um, okay, that's very cool, guys. I think that's pretty much
that's
all we've got to say today. Um, if anybody wants us to take a look at their server side tagging, give us a shout. You know how to find us. We are more than happy to discuss that and any other objectives you're looking for.
Yes, or any uh, level of volume of website or web app where you have difficulties keeping up with your demand and speed, we certainly take a look and make sure you have what you need. Awesome.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining me. Parth, I guess we didn't really get you to say anything, but that's on me. Well, we'll get you into Evolve tomorrow a little bit more.
Yeah.
Everyone, have a good day.